This company once owned a quarter of Hilton hotels, almost 10% of Deutsche Bank, and the largest aircraft leasing company on Earth. At its peak, it controlled more than 2 trillion yuan in assets, over $300 billion. It employed over 400,000 people across 30 countries. And yet, even regulators couldn't say with certainty who actually owned it. This wasn't a tech company, it wasn't state-owned, and it wasn't transparent. This was HNA Group, and its rise and collapse reveals how power, debt, and secrecy really work inside modern China. HNA begins in 1993 on the island province of Hainan. At the time, Hainan was China's newest special economic zone, a place where rules were looser and experimentation was encouraged. HNA's original business was simple, an airline. It was called Hainan Airlines, and it operated a handful of domestic routes. One of its founders was Chen Feng, a former Chinese civil aviation official with deep knowledge of the airline industry. For the first decade, HNA was unremarkable. It survived, it expanded cautiously, it followed the rules. But in the early 2000s, China entered a new phase, and HNA saw an opportunity. In the early 2000s, Beijing launched a strategy known as going out. The goal was simple: encourage Chinese companies to expand globally, acquire foreign assets, and become international champions. Banks were generous, capital was cheap, oversight was light. For ambitious companies, this was a green light, and HNA went all in. Between 2010 and 2017, HNA transformed from the regional airline company into a sprawling global conglomerate. Here's what that looked like in numbers. 2015, HNA buys 25% of Hilton worldwide for approximately $6.5 billion. 2016, HNA becomes the largest shareholder of Deutsche Bank, owning 9.9%. 2016, HNA acquires Avalon, making it the world's largest aircraft leasing firm. Major stakes in Swissport, Ingram Micro, and dozens of logistics, finance, and real estate firms. By 2017, assets exceeded 2 trillion yuan. Annual revenue surpassed 600 billion yuan. Workforce 400,000 plus employees. Operations in 30 countries. HNA wasn't just growing, it was growing faster than almost any company on Earth. The engine behind HNA's rise was debt, a lot of it. By 2017, analysts estimated HNA's total liabilities at 600 to 700 billion yuan, between 90 and 105 billion dollars. The company borrowed from Chinese state-owned banks, international banks, offshore bond markets, complex structured financing vehicles. Many of its deals relied on short-term borrowing to finance long-term assets. This works until it doesn't. As long as asset prices rose and loans could be rolled over, HNA looked unstoppable. But behind the scenes, risk was piling up. As HNA expanded globally, foreign regulators started asking basic questions. Who owns this company? The answers were strange. Official filings claimed roughly 52% owned by employees, significant shares held by a New York-based charitable foundation, additional ownership through offshore entities in the Caribbean. But no one could identify a clear controlling shareholder. This was highly unusual for a company this large. Even US and European regulators flagged concerns about transparency. Inside China, whispers began. Was HNA connected to powerful families? Was it quietly state-backed? Or was it simply exploiting regulatory blind spots? No definitive evidence ever emerged, but the lack of clarity alone made HNA dangerous. By 2016-2017, Chinese leadership was alarmed. Capital was flowing out of the country, debt levels were soaring, and conglomerates like HNA were becoming too big and too risky to fail. Beijing responded. Banks were instructed to reduce exposure to highly leveraged firms, tighten overseas lending, review irrational foreign acquisitions. HNA was suddenly cut off from the fuel that powered its growth, and then everything started breaking. In July 2018, HNA co-founder Wang Jian died in France. He fell from a wall while sightseeing. Authorities ruled it an accident, but Wang Jian was not just a co-founder. He was believed to be a key strategist and internal stabilizer. After his death, confidence collapsed, creditors became aggressive, internal cohesion fractured. HNA was now wounded and exposed. From 2018 to 2020, HNA entered survival mode. It sold its entire Hilton stake, its Deutsche Bank shares, prime real estate in New York and London, airlines, logistics units, and financial assets. Billions were raised, but it wasn't enough. Debt repayments came due faster than assets could be sold. By 2020, defaults began. And in January 2021, HNA Group entered bankruptcy restructuring. The Chinese government took control. State-backed firms assumed management, assets were broken apart. What remained of HNA was absorbed into a more controlled structure. By 2023, HNA as a global conglomerate no longer existed. HNA wasn't an anomaly. It was the extreme version of a system that rewarded speed, leverage, and opacity. It thrived when rules were loose. It collapsed when rules tightened. And its downfall sent a message to every Chinese company: grow, but not too wild, borrow, but not too much, and never forget who sets the limits. HNA once looked like the future of Chinese capitalism. Instead, it became a warning. In a system where power, money, and politics overlap, growth is never just about business, and when the rules change, even giants can vanish.